All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me just pump this up slightly. Right. Okay. So I am completely trying this off an iPad and a new position that I've set up here in the office here to see if this will work. I don't know if it will or not. So we'll find out together this evening. But it is currently about 10 past 8. I'm slightly late. My bad. But I've got about 50 minutes to spend with you this evening just to answer any questions that you might have. So this is a finance clinic. All you need to do is pop your questions in the chat and I will do my best to give you an answer, a response that will help you get on with your own journey. I want to give a really big shout out to Michelle, who was on the live last week. We jumped on a call earlier. Yesterday actually it was, and it was really nice to kind of have a conversation with her and learn a little bit more about her journey as someone who's been watching the channel for a while, and as many of you do, you attend the live stream and maybe just don't comment all the time, or you watch the videos, you don't actively comment all of the time. It's nice to meet a silent follower, if you will. But this evening, it's all about you. So pop your questions in the chat and I will do my best to provide some kind of answer that will help you. There is a really, really busy week this week with inflation data is going to be coming in, unemployment numbers are going to be coming in, and I'm hoping there is an episode on the podcast tomorrow morning which kind of gives you an idea of what the forecast and the consensus is around what the inflation data will be, what the inflation number will be this Wednesday. And I give my views around what that might actually look like in a video tomorrow. So the podcast will be live 6 p.m. on Spotify, Apple, Google, all of the good podcast outlets. But it will also be available here on the channel from 12 p.m. So if you do have time, just bookmark it and come and watch the video and let me know what you think. It's going to be very, very interesting indeed to see what the numbers come out and see if the forecast and the consensus is actually correct. Hopefully, they get it right for once. But if they don't, sticky wicket it will be. Anyway, all right, let's just have a look and see what's coming in the chats here. 0161. Can you see property prices dropping in 2024? I'm assuming that higher interest rates will result in less appetite in the market, which means prices will come down due to less demand. Not sure where to buy. If I'm honest, will property prices fall? I would expect that property prices will fall next year. A lot of it is going to depend on what's happening with interest rates. Look, there are two trains of thought. There are two schools of thought here. One is that property prices aren't falling as far as you would like them to, and part of that's because the data that the land registry uses it lags. I think the lag is about 4, maybe even 6 months, according to Charlie. And so some of the data hasn't actually fed through in terms of how severe the property prices falling are currently. We're not seeing it because the data lags. But there is also another school of thought, and I spoke to someone from Rightmove who I know, and he was saying that they're not seeing a significant drop in property prices. And I think that is true whenever you look at maybe Nationwide or Halifax right now. The average house price hasn't fallen as dramatically as maybe some people would have hoped that they would have. We know that properties are taking longer to sell for sure, but I think there's a little bit of a tactic going on with estate agents where they're being very, very clever with how they price and market a property to try and get the best value possible. And not to mention that unless a buyer is actually motivated, then it is very, very unlikely they're going to want to sell property at maybe a 40,000, 50,000 pound discount. All those things are actually happening. I already mentioned that I received a text message on a DM on Instagram over the past month where someone was able to get a 39,000 pound discount on the property, and even though interest rates were high, they've still gone for it. Michelle is a prime example. She's buying a place either way, and her interest rate isn't what you would say the cheapest, considering we've come from 1-2% rate. She's in the 5% range. So I think it's really all about what your circumstances are. And I think when you think about interest rates specifically, interest rates aren't likely to go down dramatically, I think, in the next year or so, especially if you start paying attention to what the Bank of England is saying. they're saying we're going to be seeing higher interest rates for longer. So that doesn't necessarily breed an environment that is healthy to or conducive to lower interest rates on mortgages, unless the mortgage providers are actively trying to drum up business, where they decide to maybe push the mortgage rates lower to facilitate more business. But generally speaking, from interest rates and maybe from what we're hearing from the likes of Andrew Bailey, I don't think that we're going to see a huge fall in interest rates over the next year. I think if they do level out, they'll level out around about maybe 4% or so, around about there is what I think most people are saying in the industry, and what I think as well. But as to whether or not you should wait when looking to buy, pay attention to your local market, mate, is what I would say. How long does a debt stay on one's credit score? All right, so if you have a missed payment, if you have a late payment, it goes on your credit score and it's there for 6 years. So the record will be seen for 6 years. You could argue that it won't have as much of a negative impact if you're looking for new credit facilities, if or once you get to the maybe 3 or 4 year mark, it will start to, I guess, have less prevalence. I would say that it's better to have no missed or late payments at all, but if you do have one, to have it as a one-off and not consecutive missed payments. What the credit reference agencies and what the lenders are looking for is they're looking for patterns. So if you have a history where you have had repeated late or missed payments, either in a row or in like batches, that's generally bad news. And if they do accept you, it means that they're going to rate up your interest rate, because they will deem you to be higher risk, as a potential customer to lend to. Michelle, you're here. Thank you. It was really good to talk to you, mate. And yeah, I look forward to sending you an email once I get back next week, so we can continue our conversation as well. Let's have a look. Hey, buddy. Surely now is the time to sell out of your investments in Man U. I've got a little bit, but I'm not selling. They only small of four, a very very small part of my portfolio, like infinitesimal, very very small. But I'm just going to hold it. They're my team at the end of the day, so yeah, it's nice to be able to make a little bit of money off them, but they're not really a significant part of my portfolio, where if I'm down, it's not going to do any significant damage to me. I've only got a small amount in there. So, but the performance is on the team. I mean, I watched the Luton match yesterday. I mean, what an absolute drab. It's painful to watch right now. It really is. And now we've got Ericsson and Hoyland both injured. I mean, I don't know what's going on. And somehow we're still sixth in the league. Well, we were yesterday at least. I don't know what happened with Chelsea drawing this evening against Man City. I don't know where they are, but it's an absolute mess, mate. And United. At least I'm not a Chelsea fan. That's the silver lining I'm going to use here. I currently pay into a Vanguard Stocks and Shares ISA this tax year. Am I able to pay into Invest Engine Stocks and Shares ISA next tax year and still receive dividends in my Vanguard account as long as I don't pay into it? Yes, Darren, you can. So as long as, obviously, be aware of the tax year dates, April the 6th to April the 5th. So you've chosen Vanguard for this particular tax year. So come April the 6th, 2024, you can pay into an Invest Engine one, and you'll still be able to get, obviously, investment returns across both. But you cannot, if you choose to invest in the Invest Engine ISA, pay money into the Vanguard ISA at the same time. It's interesting that you've chosen Invest Engine, because obviously they are one of the ways where you can get things like the S&P 500 cheaper than you can with Vanguard because of the platform fee. Invest Engine doesn't have that platform fee, so it's quite a nice vehicle to use, and they've gained a lot of popularity off the back of that as well. And I've obviously done videos on them as well on the channel. Food Dweller, hello Pete, how are you? Did you get a chance to watch Chelsea versus Man United? No, I didn't. But before this live, I was in my accountability group, and Michael is a Chelsea fan. And I remember, so I'm going to Monaco in the morning, so I've had to move my car and just reposition my car on the drive to get it plugged in, because I've got to leave here at like 1-2 in the morning. And as I was in the car, I heard on Talk Sport that it was 2-1 to Chelsea. I think Sterling had just scored. Then maybe half an hour later, once I jumped into my call with my accountability group, Michael was saying it ended like 4-4, something like that. I think it was a 95th minute penalty or goal or whatever to equalize for Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea, well done. I mean, two results back to back, Tottenham and now Man City. So that will be hugely confidence boosting. I wish I could say the same for United, but I didn't watch the match. But I heard that it was absolutely nuts, penalties and all sorts. So I'm sure I'm going to try and capture that on a match of the day. It will be recorded right now. 10 o'clock. Will be recorded. I'll try and catch that a bit later on. But yeah, haven't actually watched. I didn't actually watch the match, but I have caught the highlights, if you will. All right, cool. So, guys, if you do have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat right there. The game, the game was incredible. Best game so far. You know what? Did they have any VAR issues? Because every time I watch a match, it feels like it for United anyway. I feel like VAR's going to be involved. VAR's going to have some kind of input. I mean, midweek watching them against Copenhagen, red card, completely and utterly destroyed. I mean, you can argue that the team shouldn't capitulate in that way, but 2-0 up, a red card when you're simply trying to shield the ball. It's just an absolute nonsense with VAR. So I've not seen it. I know that there were some penalties. Were they the right call or were they the wrong call? You're saying it's an incredible game, so I'm guessing you're a Chelsea supporter because I cannot imagine a Man City supporter being happy with the way things have ended here. He also said here, you didn't mention that Trust is releasing her alternative budget this week. Get your popcorn ready to go live. Right, so I haven't heard about Trust or anything like that. We know that we've got the autumn budget on the 22nd of November, which is my birthday. So I'm going to be doing a live that day to cover what's coming out. For what I've been hearing, there are some really, really interesting things in the budget. There's some stuff around ISIS, apparently. There's apparently going to be some stuff for to help first-time buyers. That's going to be very, very interesting. But I've not been able to find anything concrete just yet online. So I'm trying to kind of bide my time a little bit to see what I can find before I actually go live. But on the 22nd, I will be going live just to kind of give an overview of what's going on. But I hadn't heard the Liz Truss was doing anything. I might have to Google that a bit later on to find out what you're talking about. But she really, I mean, she should just have a cup of tea and chill out. Sit it out. Don't bother. Is my advice to her. Do not bother with that at all. All right, okay, so I'm just going to scan here. Have I answered all the ones that are on here currently? Yes, I have. Like I said, I am going to Monaco next week. Well, tomorrow, this morning. And I'm going there for a week. I am going for a little bit of work. I'm going to go see some family that's also in Marseille. And then I'm also going to try and get some downtime whilst I'm out there as well. And so today has just been catching up with things and trying to be prepared for the week. So we've got the podcast out tomorrow. There should be a video midweek as well. I get back next Sunday. So at this point in time, there may not be a live next Sunday. I'm not too sure just yet. But what we're doing at the moment is what I'm trying to do at the moment is I'm trying to prepare and look ahead for next year. There's a few things that I've got in the pipeline. So one of the things that I will be doing next year, and this is based off feedback from people, is I'll be doing a book club which will take people through the principles and the practical elements in my book, which is just over my shoulder here, in the new year. Now, how that is going to work is it's a 6-week program, essentially. So each week, we're going to jump into a weekly call. You're going to have weekly tasks. The tasks are the exercises in the book, and I've designed an extra one as well. On the investing piece, you're going to get access to my investment course, which is worth £120, that will talk you through the investment side of things. But the idea is, because the book builds on the foundations, the formula, the things that you need to have in place in order to get your finances into good shape in 2024, I'll take you through all of the practical elements over a 6-week period. Each week, there's an exercise for you to complete. There's a membership area that I've created on the website, which you'll have access to. And effectively, it's going to be a great tool to get people ready for the new year with New Year's resolutions and starting off the year with their finances in order. By the end of it, your credit scores are going to be sorted. If you've got any debt, you're going to have a proper plan of how you're actually going to address that debt, how you're going to approach it, how you prioritize, all that kind of stuff. Your budget is going to be locked down big time. We're going to get you on the road to, putting money aside towards emergency funds or towards your goals. If you already have an emergency fund, we're going to structure your finances so that it's 100% foolproof for 2024. So that's going to be starting in January. I've just got a little bit of collateral that I need to work through in order to provide a little bit of marketing and a little bit more information. But at the moment, if you're watching this and it's something that you think, actually, this might be up my street because my finances is a mess and I know I need to get it sorted, then all you need to do is head over to my website. So it's peterkomolafe.com. So peterkomolafe.com, KOMOLAFE.com. And if you go onto the tab with book club on it, you can register your interest. So I'm going to run this book club in cohorts of 20 and no more than 20. Once the first cohort is full, then whoever is left on the waiting list that didn't make it will run a cohort probably in about 8 weeks after. So we'll have 6 weeks, a week break, then we'll start the second cohort after the first cohort has basically ended. So it's cohort of 20. It will be interactive. You'll get to meet other people who are on the similar journey to you, who will be setting goals. And that's going to be a big part in week one, setting your goals for the year. Because there's no point going into 2024 if you haven't got a clear idea of what it is that you want to achieve. Like, what are you here for? Like, what are you doing this for? What do you want to be different from this year, next year? We're going to help you get all of that out, really document it. And it's something that we're going to hold you to as well. So, it's going to be really, really good if you're trying to get your finances in order, or you want to achieve something that has finance as the catalyst to make that happen. But yeah, head over to the website and you can register your interest there. Let's have a look and see, because I think there's a couple of other questions that have come in here. Which investments is good for kids? My children just have thousands of pounds sitting in their future saver account. All right, so I generally say junior ISAs, but with the junior ISA, they get ownership of that money at age 18. So you've got to be careful there. It does put off some parents because they're like, I don't want my kids to have, 15 grand, 10 grand, whatever the amount might be at age 18. I would argue that if your kids are young enough, then it's the perfect opportunity to start having conversations about money with them very, very early on, and letting them know and say, look, we've worked really, really hard to put this money aside for you, and opposed to going out and buying maybe a car or, using it to go party, we'd love for you to use it for something important. And whether that is traveling so they can broaden their horizons, or whether it is university fees, or whether it's a deposit for a property, it's important to try and have those conversations with your kids a lot earlier if you use like an ISA. Now, the reason why an ISA is so great is because at the end of the day, it is completely tax free. And as a child, their junior ISA allowance is £9,000. So it's a lot you can save tax year to tax year, and anyone can pay into it. You as parents can pay into it. Uncles, aunts, sisters, cousins, anyone can pay into it for them on their behalf. So if you've got a family, a large family that likes to gift money for birthdays, well, get them to gift it into the junior ISA. It's perfect. It's tax-free. You can have it in a cash ISA. You can have it in a stocks and shares ISA. Obviously, if you have it in a stocks and shares ISA, just remember the money is invested. So investment risk, all that good stuff. But that's where, you need to be careful and be particular around what kind of investments you're picking, bearing in mind that the key consideration there will be how old your child is until they get hold of that money. But a junior ISA is a very, very good place to start. Lucky Leo, can you help me with self-assessment tax returns? Unfortunately, mate, I can't, because I'm not an accountant. I have an accountant that does mine. So I can't help you with that, unfortunately, mate. You can do it yourself, but from my own experience, it's an absolute ball ache. Literally, it's so stressful. So if you can get an accountant to do it for you. If you can't get an accountant, what I would recommend is pick up the phone to HMRC. There is a little bit of a waiting time sometimes to speak to them, ring them early in the morning, but they can talk you through how to complete the self-assessment. But it's not something I can help with because I'm not an accountant. I have an accountant that does mine for me, and accounts are due in January. So he's currently working through those at the moment. What are your opinions on holding precious metals? Gold, silver, platinum, those kind of things, good. In recessionary periods, they will tend to do pretty well because they're a diversifier as a commodity. So yeah, they'll be doing very, very well right now. I don't hold physical gold or physical silver. I've got ETFs that will have them as part of the allocation, but I don't hold physical ones. And if you are going to be holding physical metals, then I think it is worthwhile just noting that the storage is really, really important. And obviously, you need to make sure that you are able to, they're not easy to just, you've got to take it somewhere, then you've got commissions and all this kind of stuff. So that's worthwhile just bearing in mind. If you are going to be using storing precious metals. 1 second, guys. 1 second. It's just gone off. And I think there we go. It's just me. And I think, yeah, just be mindful of obviously storage. But precious metals are good in high inflation environments or recessionary environments because they're a good diversifier in your portfolio. Temi, do you think there'll be a possible UK recession in 2024? Possibly, yes. It really depends on what happens with inflation, unemployment numbers, the economy generally speaking. I think I mean, if you look at the growth numbers being forecast for the UK right now, it's not pretty, mate. I mean, our growth is pretty stagnant at the moment. 0.1, 0.2, 0.3%. I mean, we're the lowest, I think, of the G7 at this point in time. Could that turn into a recession? Because the margins are so thin, quite possibly, and quite quickly as well. So if we have inflation increase this Wednesday and the Bank of England has to put up interest rates, there's a huge risk that that will be a possibility next year. So I would say that if I had to put it on a scale of, is it 50-50? It is 50-50. I would say right now. Some would argue maybe there's a higher risk than that, but I'm kind of in the middle right now as to whether or not we'll fall into a recession in 2024. Leo saying, I've never had a problem for tax returns, and now they want tax returns from, 2008 to 2014 that they say I requested, but I was never self-employed during those years. Okay. Mate, you need to speak to an accountant. If they're giving you a reason why they're asking for 2008 to 2014, I know that they can go back a long time. Have you spoken to them? You need to speak to them and just have a dialogue and say, look, why are you requesting this information? It may be that they think that you owe them taxes. And this is the thing. I did a video about side hustles, right? And the fact that they are changing the rules as of January around side hustles, making platforms like Etsy, Fiverr, Upwork, Uber report to them. And this is what they can do. If they feel like you owe them taxes, they can ask you for your tax self-assessment for years gone by. So I think you need an accountant, or at the very least, you need to pick up the phone and actually speak to them. And just explain the situation and say, look, you weren't self-employed during those period of time. What exactly is it that you want to see? If you've already spoken to them, mate, and they're not really giving you an answer, speak to an accountant. I'm not an accountant, unfortunately, so I can't really help you there, mate. But yeah, that's a difficult one. Food Dollar, which bank is better to save in the UK? Do you think Metro Bank will last for long? I don't use Metro Bank. I'm with Starling right now. I'm with Starling right now, and they don't have any savings accounts. So if you're going to go savings accounts, I think the best ones are probably the more traditional ones. Nationwide have got really good rates. Mutuals are generally mutual building societies. I'm saying here generally offer better rates than the likes of Barclays, NatWest, Halifax that may have shareholders to satisfy. Generally speaking, but if you shop around, you should find the best rates available. But I don't know about Metro Bank, mate. Metro Bank, I know that they raise money. I know that they did raise money, so they're kind of out of the hole that they kind of were in previously. But whether they're going to continue to remain, it's always going to be a risk, mate, at the end of the day. The fact that they got investment should give people confidence. But I would question, what do they have to change, if anything, in their business model? It's going to be interesting to see. Okay. Yeah, dude. Yeah. I don't really know what to say, really, to be honest, mate, because that's a tough one. That's a real tough one. Let me give you a piece of advice, though. Don't Try and be as diplomatic as possible with them, because you don't want them flexing their muscles and making things like a misery for you. You just don't want that, mate. I know people have gone through audits with HMRC. Stressful. You don't want that. So try and be as diplomatic as possible with them and just say, look, you weren't self-employed. You don't have a self-assessments from them because you weren't self-employed. What is it that you want me to do? And ask them the question straight, but try and be as diplomatic as possible, really. What's my take on life insurance? Life insurance is great. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So life insurance, I have life insurance. Everyone should have life insurance at the end of the day. People talk so much about, generating generational wealth. So they can leave money to their kids and to their family, right? So they can be better off than where they were when they first started out their journey. But they neglect life insurance because it's a monthly cost. And so the question I often ask people when I have these conversations is, well, how much work would it take you to generate generational wealth? How much work? So it's either you're doing this in a 9 to 5, which means you've got to have a pretty high paying 9 to 5 that you're investing a large chunk of that money to be able to generate that kind of wealth. You're either then maybe putting it into a business, which means you're going to sacrifice, work really, really hard, time, money, right, to acquire properties, or you're building a business, which again, time, money, sacrifice, right? So if the goal is to leave something to your loved ones, well, for the little cost of 10, 20 pounds a month, insurance is surely worth it. One of the things that saddens me so much is I will see people on Facebook groups asking general public, just people, for money for a funeral for XYZ who died tragically. And it's like, life insurance. Why? We see it as a waste of money, but it's not really. It's really not. You're leaving something. You're taking up life insurance so that the loved ones that you leave behind don't have a financial burden. Whether that be your funeral cost, or whether it be the cost of your mortgage, or anything else, inheritance tax bills. That's the purpose of it. So when you think about it from a monthly cost point of view, you're giving someone else that you care about peace of mind. Is that not worth the monthly amount? And generally speaking, when you have those kind of conversations with clients, as I used to, kind of like they see it for what it is. It's not a waste of money. It's you're buying peace of mind. So I think life insurance is well worth it. You should definitely have it. If you have a mortgage, you should definitely have it. If you have kids, you should definitely have it. If you've got a partner, you should definitely have it. But it's all about making sure that you get the right kind of cover. Which bank is safer? I've already done this one. 1 second. Yeah. So, yeah. Cheers for this, Leo, because I noticed that, but then I don't know if it's my internet. I don't know whether it's this setup that I'm just working with right now, but you're just saying here all good. Would you recommend holding money market funds inside an ISA as part of an emergency fund? I mean, yes, you can, for sure. There's no reason why you can't, because money market funds tend to do okay, really, to be honest, a lot of the time. And there isn't really that much risk with money market funds either, so you can for sure. Disco's asking, the UK government wants to fund provider rate their funds on how beneficial they are to consumers on red-green scale. How are fund providers allowed to offer useless funds in the first place? All right, so 1 second, let me just reread this. Right, okay, I see what you mean. Okay, I see what you mean. So how are fund providers allowed to offer useless funds in the first place? It depends what you say is a useless fund. What's a useless fund? You may think it's useless, but other people may not. I mean, funds are built for a specific reason, right? And with specific objectives in mind. And if you go through the key information document, you'll know whether the objectives of X fund meets your goals and objectives for investing in that fund in the first place. Oftentimes, what happens is this: people won't look at the fine detail in a key information document. They'll find a YouTube video where they're saying go invest in this fund, but won't actually go and find out whether that fund actually aligns with their own goals. And therefore, the fund will be useless to them because it's not built for that purpose that they want to invest for, right? You know, prime example, if someone, and this will be a spurious one that may not actually make sense, but it kind of paints the point and makes the point. If you're an ethical investor and you want to invest in ethical funds only, if you're picking a fund that is predominantly invested in, I don't know, weapons manufacturers, of course, that's absolutely useless to you. So, what is the definition of useless? Useless because it didn't perform, useless because the objectives don't align with yours. What's the definition of useless? Because all of these funds are built for a particular objective. And because the objectives are different and they serve different customer groups and goal aspirations, it may not be suitable for you, but it will be suitable for someone else. You may have someone who is investing in dividend stocks and dividend stocks only. So they're looking at a dividend fund, but it may not be a high yield dividend fund. It may be middle of the road dividend fund. And it really depends what your objectives are and what you deem as useless and why you deem them as useless. So it's hard to say why, they offer useless funds because they're not going to be useless. They'll be packaged for a purpose. And as an investor, it's your responsibility to make sure that an investment fund that you invest in aligns with your own purposes, and that's why research is so important. Great response. Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Very, very good. Let's have a look at this one. I took your advice last week and ran a few scenarios on paying off the smallest debt first versus tackling the ones that cost me the most. It was great to see both scenarios laid out, as now I can see an end date for getting through them. I really appreciate the advice. Thank you, mate. Listen, that's made my day. Thank you, dude. And look, you went away and did the hard work at the end of the day, right? And I think sometimes because it can be very, very overwhelming when you're staring down the barrel of things like debt. And with debt, you have the anxiety, you've got the ostrich effect normally, where you just don't want to look at it. And I did that for the longest time. It does take a little bit of courage, and it does take, that self-awareness to be able to look at it and be like, okay, let me sit down and really look at the numbers. Do you know how many people that I would go through that kind of stuff with, and they would find it so hard to right, okay, I've got this credit card with this much on it. This is the interest rate. These are the monthly payments. This is my budget. This is how much I can afford. This is how long it's going to take me to pay it back. Like, for some people, that's way too much. So you did the work there, mate. So thank you very much for that. Really do appreciate it, but well done. Is it possible to have two pensions, a workplace one and a self-employed? I'm a teacher, but I also have my own limited business. I understand the self-employed pension can be tax efficient. Okay, so if you've got a workplace one, that's great. If you're self-employed at the moment and you've got a limited company, I'm a teacher, but I also have a limited company. Okay, so you're a teacher, so you got your teacher's pension. You're self-employed, so you've got a limited company. You can go and set up a private pension or a SIP. And that contribution that you make into that private pension or a SIP will be tax deductible as a business expense and will help you reduce your corporation tax. So the contribution as a business expense will mean that you've got tax efficiency in there. There's nothing wrong with what you're thinking there, mate. The teacher's pensions, you've got a guaranteed element to it. So I wouldn't necessarily say go and add that. I mean, you could, maybe you could. You might want to ask the question, but having it separate in a SIP or a personal pension, there's nothing wrong with that. But you can do it where if you make the contribution from your business into personal pension or a SIP, it is a business expense that will help you reduce your corporation tax. So that is a good thing. You can do that, no problem at all, and you'll be well within the rules as well. Thank you for this, Slee. Thank you very much. Just got your book in Audible version. I look forward to listening when I can. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. Thank you for the support. Slee's just saying here as well, I assume I should get the debts down to a manageable level before I think about investing. Would you say that is sensible? That is 100% sensible, mate. The last thing you want to do is start investing with debts that potentially are a drain on your income. And what will happen is when you pay down those debts, the money that you would allocate to those debts, you can throw into the markets. And because you don't have that burden of debt, it will just accelerate your progress moving forward. It's way, way better than trying to do both things at the same time, because you're still going to have that mental burden of there's a bit of debt there. I mean, ideally speaking, once you pay down the debt, you want to try and get an emergency fund, maybe 3 months at least before you start investing. But once you paid off your debt, that's going to be easier to acquire. It's going to be easier for you to be able to get into an emergency fund to give you that cushion. Because the last thing you want is to start investing in the markets and things will be volatile. You get to the point where you need to take money out because you haven't got a emergency fund, and then you're potentially cashing money out at a loss. So if you can, pay down the debt, get an emergency fund, then start investing. That's the ideal route. But for sure, pay down debt first as much as you possibly can. You'll feel so much better about yourself as well once the debt is all paid. Disco's saying, also wanted to ask at what management fees are essentially robbery. I've seen everything from 0.1 to 1% with widely varying results. I don't understand how 1% fee could be justified. It can be justified because not all investments are created equal. It also depends on the kind of investment you're taking out. If you're taking a passive investment which has no managerial involvement or no investment tweaking at all, those are going to be low cost. They've always been low cost. If you have a managed fund, then you're going to have to pay for the expertise of someone to do it for you. I mean, nobody works for free. Companies don't operate for free. So, yeah, you're going to pay a fee for that. As to which one is right for you completely depends on why you're investing. So, what your goal is, how long you have to invest, whether you are low risk, medium risk, or high risk on the spectrum, and whether you want exposure to specific type of companies or you want to be invested in a specific way. So I've worked for discretionary fund managers, and what we used to do as a discretionary fund manager is we would work with wealthy people who wanted to allocate their money to certain sectors and certain companies. I remember we had a guy who worked in the medical field, in the pharmaceutical field, and he had a load of money and he wanted access to certain companies within the medical arena specifically. And so what we were doing for him, we were building a portfolio, and he came to us with a number of companies. We did research, but we did wider research as well to say, look, for this sector, these are the top players. These are the ones where we feel moving forward, they're working on some really exciting stuff. We run it by him and say, look, do you know of them? What are your views? That kind of stuff. We package it. That isn't done for free. You pay an additional cost for that because that is a fully managed service. So at some points, yeah, you're going to be paying 1%. Whereas if you go for a passive where literally someone's just hobbled together a bunch of companies together and like, put all of your cash in here, we're not going to touch it. We're not going to manage it. We're not going to do anything with it. If the market goes up, it goes up. If the market goes down, it goes down. Then you're paying 0.1% for this, obviously. Now, it has its merits because there's a low cost coefficient, so you're keeping more of your money. But at the same time, if the market slide, this thing's sliding with it. Whereas over here, where we're building something bespoke, we have control. We have total control. We can say, actually, this company isn't necessarily performing as we thought we will. But actually, what we can do is we can swap this out for another company which we think is doing better. Or something's happened with this company right here in this sector. It might be one that maybe the client looked at before. Let's go in and buy a little. There's more control over here. So you're going to pay more services. So the question is, how do you want to be invested? What are you investing for? What's your goals? How long? What risk level are you willing to invest at? Those are all key questions because, yeah, cost is important, but cost is only an issue in the absence of value. If you can align everything that I've just said in terms of why you're investing, how long you're investing for, if you can align all of those things with a fund that does the job that fits your criteria, if it's slightly more expensive than one that's, I don't know, 0.5%, you've got to pay 0.7, you'll pay it. And people do because that's just how human psychology works. All right, okay. I think I have got to the end of all of these. Guys, please do me a favor. If you have got value from this, please do smash the like button. I'm just looking at the screen over here. How many likes have we got at the moment? We've got over 50 people on here right now. And I think we've only got 16 likes. So can we please get that up to 30? The reason why it's important is because we're answering a load of questions here, and I'm sure people will be searching YouTube for answers to these kind of questions. It just means that the YouTube algorithm will recommend this video to someone who may be asking a question that we've answered here. So it does a it's a small thing you can do, but it does matter a lot to the channel. And I just want to say as well, we crossed 45,000 subs. I want to say welcome to everyone who is new to the channel. Thanks so much for joining. Next year is going to be really, really important in terms of the kind of content we're going to be doing and the kind of conversations we're going to be having. This year's been a bit of a distraction, if I'm honest. Last year was a bit of a distraction because of TV work and stuff. And we're just going to get back to the content next year. But thank you so much for joining. It is now, what time is it? It's about 10 to. Let me see if there are, I said I'm going to give it 50 minutes. So I don't want to shortchange you guys. Yeah, there are no other questions in here. So unless there are new questions that come through in the next minute or so, I am literally going to sign off. I've still got to pack because I've not packed yet. And then I've got to leave in maybe 3 to 4 hours time to get to the airport. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much. I will catch you later on. Cheers.